A show created by the fans, for the fans. We are your home for Ohio State football coverage all year long. The Scarlet and Gray Podcast, a Network 216 production. Live weekdays on the Network 216 YouTube channel. Send us all your questions and comments on Twitter at @VSG_podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Tyler Johnson, Jordan Dalton, and Nick Leisure.
Hello, Buckeye Nation. Welcome to today's episode of the Scarlet and Gray Podcast, your Ohio State versus Tennessee playoff game day preview. I am Tyler Johnson, joined by the boys, Nick Leisure, Jordan Dalton. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty well.
Throw those T's down, bro. Putting the T's upside down.
Yes, sir.
I love it. Before we get started, there's a lot to talk about, of course. Big game on Saturday. Before we get to any of it, drop a quick like on the video. Subscribe if you are brand new to the channel. Again, we really appreciate all the support. We have reached 10,000 not subscribers, followers on Twitter. We really appreciate that. The show will be available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you are unable to watch the video version. So thank you for the support. All right, guys, first piece of news before we even get into Ryan Day's press conference. Quentin Joyner, Nick, we talked about it last night, running back from USC, was heavily linked to end up at Ohio State, has committed to Texas Tech like everybody else in the transfer portal. So Ohio State will not be getting Quentin Joyner. And the Buckeyes will try and look at other options at running back. We'll see if they get involved more with Justice Haynes. They have not been able to schedule a visit to this point, even though they're still, for whatever reason, heavily linked to the kid. That one's interesting. Ohio State will be hosting, trying to do this with a straight face, Idaho State defensive lineman Logan George next week on a visit. And they are trying to work on getting a visit scheduled with Purdue tight end Max Clare, who is one of the top tight ends in the transfer portal. So that's where things stand so far on the Ohio State side of things.
Can he play tackle? Can he play tackle as well as play tight end? Can he play tackle too?
Not that I'm aware of. But, who needs offensive linemen when you can just have a lot of skill position players that can run up the middle for 1 yard? All right, anyway. All right, guys. So, Ohio State, Tennessee, in the shoe. Ryan Day had some very interesting comments the other day. First off, he said there is a kicking competition currently going on between Jaden Fielding and Austin Schneider. So the question remains, guys, who ends up kicking on Saturday, do you think? Do you think Jaden Fielding keeps the job? Will they go to Austin Schneider? One thing I'll say, and before you guys weigh in, it's so great we're having a kicking competition right before only the biggest game of the season.
Yeah, I couldn't have. That was exactly what I was thinking. It's like, why are we at this point in the year deciding that now it's a good time to test Jaden Fielding and put him in a competition scenario? That being said, I think they end up sticking with him this late in the season. I don't know. That's going to be a tough position for either kicker. You end up benching Jaden Fielding, and then Schneider comes in. He's got his first career game against Tennessee at home.
In the playoff.
So yeah, I don't see it. I don't see them switching it up, but it is interesting they have a competition going on.
I mean, yeah, it's very frustrating that we even need to have a kicking competition at this point in the season. But yeah, I agree with you, JD. I think they're going to roll with Fielding just because he's been the guy all year long, and you would hate to put another guy out there just for him to get the same result, right? So I think you roll with Fielding. Even though the last time he was out at Ohio Stadium, it wasn't a great showing from him, but it is what it is. Ryan Day was asked in his presser, well, how have the teammates responded to him and everything? Like, oh, they've been super confident, and they've been backing him up and stuff. I'm like, all right, yeah, of course it's what you're going to say. I'm really curious to know what's actually being said, but another thing we'll never know.
Exactly, and that's what's just Just wild, man. It really is. The other big piece of news that came out, I thought this was interesting and kind of worrisome at the same exact time. Ryan Day says Luke Montgomery will likely see playing time at guard against Tennessee, and we will see a rotation at the position. So we might play 3 guards against one of the best defensive lines in college football on Saturday. Once again, guys, I mean, it's just this team. I understand. Like, you want to try and find the right mix, but you should leave a guy in there and go with it. I mean, rotating every quarter or whatever it's going to be. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on that? I personally don't like it, especially when offensive line's about cohesion. And if you're continuously rolling guys in and out on the offensive line, I don't know. It does not scream like that's going to be very successful. But hey, hopefully I'm wrong.
I don't know, man. It's definitely not ideal, right? I feel like the all year long they've been preaching, well, we want to have depth. We want to have depth. So, I mean, I guess you're really going to test your depth here, rolling out possibly 3 different guys. That's, 3 different combinations on the offensive line. So it could get dicey, right, really quickly. But another thing that you just you got to lay it all on the line. I mean, it's do or die here. So you got to see whatever, like put your best foot forward and just hope for the best, I guess.
Yeah, no, man, that's true. And yeah, we'll see what happens. It's just rotating on the offensive line, especially when there's no real need to just go with someone. But so Luke Montgomery could play right guard one series, move to left guard, and so on and so forth. It'll be interesting to see how they handle that. I don't really know what to expect there.
The team is definitely hurting with just the offensive line injuries too. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I mean, this back half of the season's been kind of a nightmare for offensive line. And, maybe they're just trying to figure out something that works. Maybe they saw something on tape with that Michigan game where they felt the need to address it that way. So who knows?
Yeah. The other final piece of information, just that kind of thought was interesting because the fact this is getting brought up, it's gotten brought up a couple times this year. Ryan Day said Devin Brown is going to be still the backup quarterback, but Julian Sayin still pushing for the backup job. I don't know. That whole thing is just weird to me. Like, I don't really understand it. I know Devin Brown technically has the experience, so to say. Like, he's what, sophomore, redshirt sophomore. I know. But it's just Devin Brown is going to be the backup, who supposedly is going to be leaving after the playoff. And Julian Sayin, most likely, we'll see. There's a lot of dominoes that still could be falling here. Could be the quarterback next year for Ohio State. I don't know. Are you guys still surprised that Devin Brown's? The whole thing is a little weird to me. The way they keep doing this publicly. Are they trying to get Julian Sayin to stay? Like, it's just weird. You keep bringing up a third-string freshman quarterback almost, it seems like, every other week, and it's just a little odd to me. What do you think about that, especially addressing this right before a playoff game?
Yeah. I mean, Devin Brown entered the transfer portal. So that's also an interesting dynamic to the situation. Like, what if he ends up getting significant playing time in this playoffs and
it plays well, right?
It plays well, right?
Yeah. Plays well. Then then it's like, well, he's probably going to stick around then.
Yeah, right? It's interesting. I think going into this game, they are hoping Will Howard is 100%. And they don't have to address this QB2 situation, but I think you're right, TJ. I think saying Julian Sayin is still in the mix is more so to keep him in the fold than it is to actually say he's the backup over Devin Brown. Because I don't think they want to lose either one of those guys going into next year. So they want to make sure it's competitive, and I think Ryan Day wants both of those guys to be competing for the QB1 job next year. So,
yeah, no, I mean, just wild. The timing's just always interesting, especially something like that, because at this point you don't want guys entering the portal, and he keeps mentioning Julian saying publicly, so it almost makes you wonder, like, Julian want to be guaranteed the starting job or he's going to leave, which there's been some speculation that might be the case if he's not guaranteed the job. And in this day and age in college football, that's how some of these kids are. If they're not guaranteed the starting job, they'll just leave. And yeah, we'll see what happens there on that end of things. If Will Howard, and we're hoping, we're going to knock on some wood, doesn't end up injured on Saturday, like if he did end up injured, who actually will come in, that would be interesting, especially given the comments. Like, do they put Julian out there? I don't think they would, but you just never know in this day and age of college football. And then, of course, Devin Brown comes in. Yeah, it could be opening up a can of – that's the other thing. He comes in and plays and actually does pretty well, then you're opening up a can of worms there because, man, like Devin Brown decides he wants to stay. How's Julian Sain going to take it? Yeah. Be interesting to see how this plays out, guys. But anyway, getting to the game now on Saturday. Tennessee's coming up here. There's a lot of rumors that there's probably going to be 30% of Tennessee fans. A lot of Tennessee fans have been talking over social media. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I definitely have. Just saying that they're going to, like, check her out the shoe and all that.
Shoe, dude.
What are your thoughts on that? Nick, you know SEC. You know because of being at a lot of Kentucky games. SEC fans do travel well. But when you hear that, I mean, what do you think? You think it's just Tennessee fans just trying to rowdy up Buckeye fans, or do you think there actually is some smoke that there will be a lot of Tennessee fans there on Saturday?
I think there's going to be a lot of Tennessee fans there on Saturday.
Yeah,
I think
the ticket prices are not bad.
Oh, dude, no, I you know what I think is happening? One, students aren't on campus, right? So that entire one section of the stadium that's technically like B level, it's where the student section typically is. That's where all the really inexpensive tickets are right now. I've been keeping an eye on them. But, like, I don't know, dude. I just feel – because, I mean, Knoxville – to get to Columbus from Knoxville is really not that terrible of a drive. So I think there's going to be a lot of Tennessee fans there. I think there's going to be a lot of orange in that stadium, which is really unfortunate because I think what fans are doing, I think if Ohio State fans are going to go to a game, they're just going to assume we're going to win this first one, and they're going to put all their eggs in the basket of going to Pasadena and going to the Rose Bowl, right? So I think that's what's happening is a lot of these Buckeye fans are kind of putting their eggs in that they're going to go play in the Rose Bowl next week after they beat Tennessee.
And I kind of wanted to talk about it. It's a little bit off topic, but along the same lines. Like, it's supposed to be a really cool game. It's going to be an 8:00 game at night. It's supposed to be cold, windy, very similar to that Ohio State Michigan game. And I don't think people want to go sit in that right now in Columbus. And, like, there's not a whole lot of, shielding of the elements there. And I think as much as a home playoff game is an advantage, I think it also might be a disadvantage with how bad we played against Michigan. And maybe we aren't a team that's built to play in the cold. And I don't know if we've really talked about it, but, this might be a disadvantage for us, as much as it might be a disadvantage for Tennessee. But we haven't really played well in these conditions that we're going to see on Saturday. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point there with us being able to handle the weather. That's a very fair thing to think about. I mean, we've proven against Michigan the run game wasn't good enough. Now you're playing an even better – well, not even better. You're playing probably a defensive front that's on that same level. Man, you can't run the ball on Saturday. That's going to be a problem. And you're talking about Tennessee defense. Their strength is the defensive line. We know that. James Pierce, especially on the edge, they are very good at stopping the run. I mean, right now, they only give up 101 yards per game on the ground, which is 8th in the country. And that's absolutely phenomenal. I mean, they're fantastic against the run. Ohio State's beating up on the offensive line guys like we know. So, JD, I think you have a very valid point. And then you could flip that and make the argument Tennessee might not be great in this weather either, but one thing they do, they wear you down. I mean, Tennessee runs the ball the 5th most in the country. They run the ball 45 times a game. And this is the type of game in this weather It's probably not going to be snow, but it's still going to be cold. They might be able to wear down that Ohio State defensive line, especially if see it like we do in big games. Larry Johnson doesn't rotate.
We don't rotate.
And you have Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, Tyleek Williams, Ty Hamilton all out there every single snap. It's going to wear these guys down. And that's kind of my biggest worry in this game is the weather is going to be a factor. But honestly, everyone's talking about, Tennessee's coming up to the cold. Tennessee might be more prepared for this from an offensive standpoint than Ohio State is. And I think you bring up that's
definitely
a good point,
healthier.
JD.
They're definitely healthier in the trenches than we are right now. So
yeah. You look
Sampson's the real deal.
He's the most underrated running back in college football.
He's got 22
personally.
touchdowns on the year, dude. 22 rushing touchdowns this year, almost 1,500 yards.
No one really talks about him though. It's kind of crazy.
The real deal.
Like, he's a fantastic football player, and I think you guys would agree with this. Whichever quarterback is forced to make plays and can actually make them is going to win this game today.
I think Will Howard's the better quarterback. I really
agree.
believe that,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Nico's thrown 19 touchdowns. I think only 5 interceptions or something this year. So, I mean, I think if you're Ohio State, and I know we're just kind of segueing into this, I think you have to make Nico beat you, right? I mean, you just have to try to – because we all know what they're going to do. They're going to spread us out. They're going to go with their receivers outside the hashes, and they're going to have, an advantage in the box most of the time. And you just got to buck up, dude. That defensive line is really going to make or break the game. It's going to be on that defensive line and the linebackers. I'm not super worried about the secondary. I think as spotty as they've been, they can hang, but it's going to be those front six that really make the difference.
No, man. I mean, I agree with everything you're saying, and it's going to be what quarterback is going to be able to win this game. I agree with you. I do believe Will Howard's the better quarterback. Nico has he's got potential written all over him. I mean, that's what he has. But he consistently, I've watched a decent amount of Tennessee football games this year. He struggles, again, throwing the ball down the field, but his is not due to the lack of arm strength. It's due to consistently the accuracy level is not there. Will Howard, sometimes you wonder about his arm strength down the field. Nico's got it. I think Nico's got all the tools to be an elite level quarterback. I really do. He just has proven so far he's not been able to do it this year. And Tennessee is good at two things on the offensive side of the ball. They run the ball because what they do is they spread you out and just run it right up the middle in some of the weirdest formations you guys will see because they spread you out and then they force you. You either have to stack the box and let these receivers go, or you have to play them straight up, and that's how Dylan Sampson gets all the yards because there are teams that just can't handle that. I mean, they wear teams down. And if you look at it, Tennessee, they don't have a receiver, guys, that's really doing much for them. I mean, they really don't. So if you can contain Dylan Sampson, you win this football game. I firmly believe that because I don't think Nico can do enough to win. But when you look at it, what does Ohio State need to do on the offensive side of the ball, you think, in order to win this game on Saturday?
Go ahead, JD.
They have to run the ball. They have to run the ball. It's something we haven't been able to do against good teams this year. And it's another – we're staring down the barrel of another Michigan game. Possibly
a more athletic
Michigan team with a quarterback. And, this might be a trap game. This might be a game that fans are taking in lightly, but Tennessee has beat some really good teams this year, and they were in the SEC championship hunt late in the season. So they're definitely a team that can take it to us. And I'm not super optimistic after the last performance we saw of Ohio State at home that they're going to get this one done, if I'm being honest.
Dude, turnovers, man. You got to win the turnover battle.
Battle. With the offensive line injuries, like, they just need to step up. Like, it's time for the excuses to be, done with.
Well, and let's be honest, dude. Both teams have had 2.5 weeks to prepare for this game, right?
Yep.
So I don't know. I mean, Will Howard was out the entire week after the Michigan game, so I mean he's kind of behind the planning. But dude, I don't know, man. I'm with you, Jordan. I'm very uneasy about this game. Yeah, like you said, being at home isn't really as big of an advantage as you would think. Jeremiah Smith, he's got to get targets in this game. He has to. I don't care if Will Howard throws the ball 45 times. You got to get Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka, Colonel Tate. You got to get them involved early. I know we're gonna do what we always want to do. We want to establish the run early on. But if we find out early on that it's not working, we just gotta let it rip, dude. And I'm just worried that we're not gonna do that. We're just gonna keep trying to beat our heads against the wall like we did against Michigan.
There's some really big things on the line with this game. Number one, Ryan Day's job, I think, is one of them. The other is this senior class could go down as the biggest failure in Ohio State football history, just with what the expectations were coming into the season, how they performed against Michigan. The loss to Oregon, for a while, it didn't bother us. It was a 1-point loss in Eugene against the team that is currently undefeated. That's not a bad loss. But just down the stretch, we had a big win against Indiana. We took care of business against every team, but we absolutely dropped the ball against Michigan. And they either rebound or they end this season on probably the worst footing an Ohio State team has had to end the season since a team missed the bowl game, maybe.
I would agree with that.
Since before Luke Fickell's season was the last failure of a football season for an Ohio State team. So
it's
you could say we made the playoff, but man, the expectations for this season, $20 million put into the team. You're bringing
highest paid coaching staff.
Yeah, highest paid coaching staff. Just everything that went into the season. Michigan's coming into that game with 5 losses, and I don't know, man. There's a lot of things that could change this year if we end up losing this game. And granted, they still might happen if we win. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm going to be eagerly watching in my basement and hoping that all things are good at the end. But we're gonna have a recap and hopefully it's all good things and we can look forward to that rematch against Oregon. But when we do our score predictions, I'm not picking Ohio State to win this
game. Okay. Well, there's an interesting preview there. No, but in this game, I need to see a team that's not conservative. I want to see. I want to see a team that's going to take some shots. I want to see aggressive. One thing Ryan Day has done in the playoff, and I'll give him credit for it. We saw it when we played Georgia with C.J. Stroud. Where was that all year? Just letting the man rip the football. And I'm not here saying Will Howard, C.J. Stroud, but dude, let him throw it around. You're probably going to have to win this game throwing the football. And I know they might not want to do that. You have the best receiving core in the country, and there's nobody close to you. Jeremiah Smith should have at least 5 to 6 targets in the first half alone. He should finish the game with close to 15 targets.
I agree.
He needs to get the football in his hands. If it's not there running, I know you want to get Quinshaw and Trey involved. Dude, do some screens to him. Get them involved in the passing game. There's so much you can do against a Tennessee defense that, honestly, their weakness is in the secondary. That's where it is. Attack the weakness. I understand you want to establish the run. I get it. Why wouldn't you want to establish? You got the best tandem in college football in your backfield. Of course, I'd want to understand establishing the run. If you know a team's weakness and you have the talent that beats pretty much anybody, that's what you need to be doing. And I need to see Chip Kelly. Hopefully, he's calling this game. I need to see him be aggressive. I need to see him taking some shots. You know what? If Will Howard throws a pick, he throws a pick. It might happen. Be aggressive, though, throwing the ball. Get these playmakers the ball. If you do that, you're going to win. If you play conservative, you come out that first drive and you run it right up the gut 2 times in a row, throw an incomplete pass on 3rd down and 8. You're gonna have fans booing you the first drive of the game.
Fun fact. Now that you bring that up, we haven't scored a touchdown on an opening drive since we played Oregon. So yeah, that's funny you brought that up because we haven't scored a touchdown on an opening drive since we played at Oregon. That's unacceptable, right? I mean,
dude, I
thought that was crazy. Like, there's no way that's true. And I looked. It's definitely true. Definitely what happened.
Dude. Yeah. That makes me – I'm about to eat dinner, and that, makes me sick. That's terrible. That's awful. Okay. Guys, the spread in this game – is there anything else you guys want to add, and then we'll kind of move on to the spread and game predictions?
No.
Okay. All right. 7.5. The spread is 7. Huh?
A lot of points.
Ohio State's favored this game by 7.5 points at home. That's just crazy to me. But anyway, it's going to be a night game in the shoe. Rare moment, we get a ranked game at the shoe at night instead of a big noon kickoff. Fantastic. So thank you to the playoff committee for doing the right thing for once. Get Tennessee. They're coming up to Columbus. Not really going to be – they're not coming from the West Coast, so no significant time change, anything along those lines. What are you guys expecting on Saturday? What's your prediction? And do the Buckeyes cover a 7.5-point spread at home?
Well, I already said I'm not picking the Buckeyes in this game. So, no, they're not going to cover the spread.
Okay.
I think they lose a close game, and I think it's a 24-17, 7-point loss.
I'm in your ballpark, JD, but I'm going to have to disagree with you. I think Ohio State wins. I think they find a way. At home, I think the Buckeyes score 31. I think Fielding bangs in a field goal from 35 yards out.
There you go.
So I think Buckeyes 31. I think we're gonna cover, bro. I'm gonna take the Buckeyes 31-17. I think we come out slow as always, and we just find a way. I think we find a way. We cover 31-17. Ohio State moves on to the Rose Bowl to play Oregon.
I am so torn with this. The reason being, what team is going to show up on Saturday? That's what I wish I knew the answer to.
Question.
It's like a Jekyll and Hyde that we're seeing with this team from the first half of the season to the second half of the season. It's just mind-blowing. And we know Ohio State comes out and starts off slow every first quarter for whatever reason. But you know what? I have a feeling this might be a little different. There's a lot on the line here, JD, like you said. I don't know what Ryan Day's plans are. I really don't. I mean, whether he's here next year, whether that being by his own admission or if he steps down, I don't know. I feel like there's something that this team has to prove, though. Will Howard, I think specifically, has got something to prove. Coming to Ohio State, he decided to come to Ohio State and not declare for the NFL draft when there were scouts that said he could be day 2 draft pick, day 3 draft pick. So there's a lot for him to prove, and especially these seniors, like you mentioned. I think they're actually going to come out. I think they're going to come out and they're going to make a statement. They're not going to blow out Tennessee because Tennessee's a very good football team. I've watched them a couple times, and like I said, they play you tough. They are very physical, but I have a feeling this is going to be a Chip Kelly game where we're going to let some things really go. And so I got Tennessee. I got Ohio State in this game, and I do, shockingly enough, have them covering this spread as well. I have it 34-24. I do think some field goals are going to have to be made, and whether that's Jaden Fielding or Austin Schneider, I don't know. But you're going to have to make some field goals, and ultimately, I think this team's going to be aggressive because there is this is it. Like, you win, great, you go and play Oregon, an opportunity for revenge. You lose, and this is it. You're at home too, and I think that makes this even bigger of a game. So
it's a Jaden Fielding legendary game. He's going to make some field goals for us. It's
Jaden Fielding revenge game.
Yeah, dude. He's got a lot on the line for himself, right? So, yeah, dude. God, I'm nervous. I'm nervous.
I am.
But Hey, man, that's why we played the game.
Exactly. That's it. That's your Ohio State versus Tennessee game day preview. Guys, drop a like onto the channel. If you would subscribe if you're brand new to the content we put out here. The show will be available on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. You can follow us now on all social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or X, whatever you want to call it. I don't care. But you can follow us now on all social media platforms. We will talk to you guys all again soon, hopefully after a victory. As always, go Buckeyes.
Wait.
Ayo.